Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, I'm going to do things just a little bit differently. I want to speak about some of the ongoing things, including Facundo Pellistri's departure from United, the progress that seems to be occurring on Manuel Ugarte as United push forward into a deal. I want to go over some of what's happening with the PSR and why United are pretty much able to spend and get the deals that they need done this summer. And then I also want to talk about why, again, Manuel Ugarte is such a focus for United. And this is not my opinion, but the type of player that they're looking for, the reason for it, and what he brings to the table. So that is what I want to discuss today. And first, let's get started with PSR and how it affects things. And we talk about Facundo Pellistri. Facundo Pellistri today being sold to Panathinaikos. I almost got it right. I don't think I had it exactly right. But he's being sold today for about 6 million euros plus 2 million euros in add-ons. And as I said many times, they were looking for a deal that included a significant sell-on clause, which is 45%, as well as a buyback, the same that they did with Cambuala and the same that they have done with Alvaro Fernandez. And they will be looking to the same deal with Hannibal Mejbri. That's what they got. Now, this is somebody made in Discord, and I mentioned it yesterday, and some people referenced it on Twitter. Some of this is maybe not estimated quite right. Van de Beek, the initial fee is a lot lower. It could be a little bit higher, but this is a bit of an estimate. And it's a bit of an estimate of the fees that we've added, amortized, the wages that we've added, and the costs of everything that we've added so far, minus the wages that we're saving with the departures of the players who have left, as well as the profits that we're getting. A lot of it is correct in that, Wan-Bissaka, for example, it's including this. Now, there might have been some payoffs and things like that built into all of this. This is all in euros. So it may be estimating a little bit high in terms of the overall savings, but it may not be. When you look at it, United have saved somewhere in the range, let's estimate, of 30 to 35 million euros. That means that they've reduced their expenses by about 35 million euros. Now, that's a very good sign. That's a very good thing in general, at least as far as we can tell. And what that means is, despite all the spending, our overall costs have actually come down a little bit, and that's incredibly important for United. It also means that if they were to, again, make another sale, and that counts for this year because these sales count for this year. That means if United were to make any other sales, Christian Eriksen, Scott McTominay, Victor Lindelof, any of these players that are still Hannibal Mejbri or potentially still on the way out, it's going to add to the savings. And you could see a situation where United, depending on the departures, Will Fish, we don't know what he went for. We have him at 1 there, maybe, with 0.1 wages, just a small estimate. But the additional departures that could occur could obviously add to this. And United could be in a situation where they're minus 50, 60, 70 million on expenses from last year when you factor in profits and wages saved. So even with the spending, that's what is giving them the room. And so when I said that they could work, they have to keep in mind PSR, they do. Because without all of these sales, Mason Greenwood, an overall 25 million, Cambuala 9, Wan-Bissaka maybe 12 to 18. Without those, their expenses would have gone up. They can't afford the expenses to go up. That's something I indicated at the start of the window. It is a PSR problem, but they've been handling it quite well in order to keep it to a reasonable level and semi-solve this problem so that they can continue to spend without expenses rising. So they've done a really good job of doing that this summer, and there still could be more to come. And that's why they're trying to get through as much business as possible before the end of the window. And it's not totally limited in that sense by PSR. They could spend as much as they can as long as they get deals at the right values. If you add Manuel Ugarte to this at 10 million a year plus his wages, you're probably eating up a good chunk of that profitability without further sales, but still keeping to a reasonable level. That's why they can do it without further sales, but they probably can't do another transfer on top of that because, again, these expenses cannot go up. So that's where you're looking at. If United are in a profit range of 30 million or so, Ugarte would probably come with about a 10 million amortization cost and around a 8 to 10 million in wages and bonuses and fees. So you'd eat up most of that savings with that transfer. And that means you need more sales to do more business beyond that. But it also still means you're in a healthy position going into next year. So that's an important factor in all of this. Now, the other thing that I wanted to discuss was, on that front, Victor Lindelof has options abroad. Now, he's been injured. He had a small surgery, as I understand it, and but he should be fine soon. It's a sort of an interesting thing that I won't get into the details on because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to, but it was an interesting thing that he had, but he'll be fine. Not a big deal. He will be back. It shouldn't hold up a sale if there's an option for him. There's clubs in Italy interested. There's clubs in Turkey interested. It's going to be up to him and his family to decide. And if a decent offer comes in, then United will be willing to move him on. But it's tricky. He could end up just walking for free. Now, if he does, then still next summer, you're adding 7.5 million to the saved column in terms of his wages. Maguire, if United, who's likely to stay, if United do not execute that option, then he goes off the books. You're saving a huge amount that you're still paying in amortization for Harry Maguire, by the way, which you're saving big money there, which is an underrated factor. It's like 16 million a year. Regardless of what happens, that's coming off the books next year. Then you're also saving on his wages, so you could end up saving about 25 million there. So, these things could all add up next season. But Lindelof has some options. I don't think what his injury or situation would prevent a transfer. He'd probably be okay pretty soon, but we'll see there. It's starting to look tougher to sell him just because of timing. Hannibal, there's still a lot of interest in, and they really would like to get a deal done similar to Pellistri. It is harder, but Burnley, as we saw, are interested. That would be a very good move for him, and one that could work out for all parties, as they just sold Sander Berge to Fulham. Scott McTominay, as I've said many times, has turned down a number of moves and offers, and he's interested in Napoli, but of course they're still waiting and contingent on selling some players. Manuel Ugarte is the major thing that could happen this window, and McTominay in the same situation. If he stays, and United just let his contract expire, then unfortunately they won't make any profit, but they would save on his wages, not a significant amount. They may trigger the +1 to get a sale next year, even though they'll have to give up some of that fee in order to. They may have to give up some of that fee in order to pay him off, but they would still get profit because there is no transfer fee associated with him as an academy player. So, yeah, there's a lot that can be done that makes next summer look really good for United to focus on those 2 or 3 major signings that they want to make in the midfield, at fullback, and at center back potentially, which should be the areas of focus. So, progress being made on Manuel Ugarte. The talks have been continuing pretty much nonstop all week. There's some interesting things potentially happening today in London, but there's a report from a top tier reporter in France that says the deal is close. And I believe that it is. My understanding of the situation is, as of right now, Plettenberg has just said that it's advanced as well. And it's getting very, very close at this point in time. My understanding was, as of today, United were offering something in the range, and they would still prefer just to buy him outright. They were offering, if it was a loan to obligation, people shouldn't look at it like it's like a tester deal. That would just be for the finances. They want to buy the player. Okay, it's not because of a lack of convincing. They want to buy him, but they want to buy him at their value. My understanding is that as of today, they were somewhere in the range of being willing to offer a total fee that was a little bit above 50. I don't know the structure of it. I think it was on the lower end starting, like it maybe in the 40 2 million plus 10 range euros, something like that. So they may end up, again, pretty similar to a Matthijs de Ligt deal where you end up closer to what they want, but with a smaller amount of add-ons than maybe they were originally looking at, but the top end is still right around that 50 million euros range mark. But maybe just above that now, and I think it's getting there. And you know, some of it comes down to you know, what are the fees being associated with agents, with player, with all of that. So it is advancing now. I wanted to share a couple of pieces of data because I understand there's a lot of people who have some doubts on this player, but as to why United want him, and this is not my opinion, but understanding of what they're looking to do and looking at statistically why it makes sense. Manuel Ugarte, I'm gonna have a comparison here between him and Casemiro last season. Manuel Ugarte, you can see these are ball recoveries. And you can see how much he wins the ball very, very high in the opposition half. I mean, all the way up here, getting in those zones, and then otherwise dropping back deep and defending in the center of the pitch and winning the ball. Casemiro, we could see, wins the ball last year a lot in the middle. Now, United have obviously made a transition to a much more high-pressing team this year, and they intend to follow it up. When you look at the first game of the season, you can see that Casemiro was doing a lot of work high up the pitch, outside of defending on corners and set pieces. He was winning the ball very high. He had a very good game, 4 tackles. Look, he got dribbled past twice. That's okay. You know, it happens, but we'll discuss that point in a moment. Kobbie Mainoo next to him, this is a key point, made 20 ground duels and 5 interceptions, okay? So I went away there, but you can also see how high up he was on the pitch as a midfielder. However, it's a bit more of a pairing, right? He is here for the most part. And then here and here. They're not one down, one up. And that is where Ugarte plays best, is in a pivot with 2 players, and then both pushing up high. When we look at kind of the problem with Casemiro is when he would jump into tackles and miss, he doesn't have the legs to get back. Well, The Athletic did a really nice piece on Ugarte, because this is one of the concerns that people have, is, you know, he's going to be very aggressive in tackles and leave spaces behind. Well, there's 2 factors that I think make a huge difference to make Ugarte perfect for United. And yeah, it's a higher risk way of playing, but also a higher reward. High athleticism, he can be frighteningly quick in a foot race. I think people think he's slow for some reason. He's not. Defensive intensity when looking to tackle and intercept the ball. Best in a double pivot, working next to a progressive passer. Snapping into tackles, etc. Now, this is the point. High athleticism, frighteningly quick in a foot race. When we look at Casemiro, you know, last season, and let's go to tackles, okay? We're going to switch this up to tackles and compare them in terms of tackles. Casemiro's getting up to make tackles, but not necessarily winning them high. And so then what happens is he's leaving a lot of spaces in behind. Ugarte wins a lot of high tackles as well. That's a big focus of his. But you know, he was at 50% more tackles than Casemiro last season. So when he gets up there and he's making these tackles, yeah, there can be space in behind. 2 factors. 1, he has more speed to recover than Casemiro to get back after missing. We saw that a lot last year. We even saw it in the beginning of this last game. When Casemiro is on and he's making those tackles and he's succeeding, he's great. Those 2 times being dribbled past were in the first half, right near the beginning of the game. When he steps up and he misses, he does not have the legs to get back and help on the counter. Ugarte does. So yes, it can expose you a little bit, but he has the legs for it. The second factor is squad dynamics. I was talking about this yesterday, and this is why I go back to this point on Kobbie Mainoo and the number of duels that he put in. Kobbie is a workhorse. He is an energetic player. He is all over the place. And what he was doing with Casemiro was heavily following up all of his. That's why he got all these interceptions. Casemiro's throwing them off, pressuring, disrupting. Kobbie Mainoo is cleaning up, finishing the duels, intercepting the ball, winning it high. Now, that is where a player like Manuel Ugarte will thrive, is having a partner like that next to him. We saw similar squad dynamics with Fred out of possession. I go on about Fred, but you could see how much better we were defensively when Fred was playing in the team. You look at performances like Barcelona, we pressed, we were intense, we defended well. Fred was all over the place, disrupting. He doesn't always win the ball, but when he had good, energetic players at that time, Casemiro with legs following up with him, we'd win the ball high, we'd get it high, we'd succeed, and we'd be able to attack quickly. That is the approach that United are taking, and that is where, Ugarte makes a lot of sense out of possession and what they're looking at. High press in a PSG team. Why does he not fit? Because they are lackadaisical in their pressing. You watch them the last few years with the forwards they don't really press. So you've got one guy running around like a madman. Yes, then he's opening up gaps in the team. Then he's exposing them defensively because nobody is following up with him. Whereas you watch him in that Sporting side that were high pressing, and the other players are all working together. It's all a partnership. When he presses, he may win the ball, he may not, but he may disrupt the opponent and someone else gets in there and cleans up. This is what United want. This is what United are looking for. They want to win the ball high. They want to get on the attack quickly. They want to transition with speed. The interceptions, this is the other factor. There's a lot of good interceptions high up the pitch. When we look at Casemiro, that was an area he was lacking. He could not, when you'd see him go diving in to intercept the ball, and he would miss a lot. And he would not succeed in getting that last season. You can see how little he made these interceptions, in the attacking half. But we would see him dive in a lot. So that's the dynamic that they're looking for, is a player who can do that, but who has the legs and who has the energy. On the ball, they are very different for sure. Casemiro, very progressive with his passing, very aggressive with his passing. But Ugarte, one of the best interceptors. They both attempt the same amount of tackles, essentially. Ugarte more successfully, higher up the pitch, and has the legs to get back. I think a lot of people have made a focus on the in-possession traits of Ugarte, but he's a very safe passer and a good carrier of the ball. And as the Athletic thing said, he's best when partnered next to a progressive passer. And I think that that's fine. Now, did Casemiro make some really good passes into the box? Yes, on Friday's opening game, absolutely. And that is something, that United will want to pay attention to. But you don't necessarily have to have that from your midfielder. You don't necessarily have to. And but that is a factor. That is something maybe where you lose a little bit. But could Kobbie Mainoo get a bit more involved in the attack then, with Ugarte being the guy who likes to lay it off to the other players, after winning it high, so that they can create potentially. And that might also help us, hold just a little bit more possession, in my opinion. It might make a little bit of a difference there in improving the way that we hold possession. The other factor is this, and I think this is a big factor. When you look at long ball percentages and long balls completed, Casemiro was somebody who did actually play a lot of long balls. And I mentioned this before in the comparison with Burge and Ugarte, that this was something they were both good at. And I think this is a possession trait, a possession principle, an in-possession principle that United are big fans of with Ugarte, and something that they do want out of their players. So let me give this a second to load. Close this. So, that is something, unfortunately, I'll come back to that. That is something that I think was important. And Ugarte, as we showed, was one of the higher. I showed this in the Burge and the Ugarte video earlier, the Burge one specifically, so you can look at the maps of them. A lot of switches to the wings, and Casemiro does the same thing. He's very good at that. Long balls, 2 out of 2, accurate. He switches the play quite a bit. Kobbie Mainoo does as well. It's actually a huge part of our game, that passing to the wings. When the ball's on one side, winning it there, switching it to the other side. You can see we scored the goal against City that way. Even the goal against Fulham that we did score, obviously Bruno wins it on a side, gets it to the middle, passes it to the opposite wing, and then cross it into the box. So it's back and forth to destabilize the defense. And so, yeah, I think overall there's a lot of reasons why, and it's not just, you know, my opinion in the slightest. It's about how United want to play, and you know, they are really pushing for that. They're really pushing for somebody to get in to assist them in playing this style of play, and moving forward in the manner that they want to progress. And that's part of the change, the higher line, the more aggressive press, all of that, the intensity. And I think we'll continue to see that. And Ugarte makes a lot of sense there. And that's why they want to bring him in. So the deal is continuing to be discussed today. I think they're getting a bit closer on fee, you know, in working this out. There's a lot of structures. Not a done deal yet, but like I said yesterday, everybody wants this to get done, and there's a lot of talks over it. And when we look at those PSR situation, you can see why United are able to make a deal here. So it's not about not being able to afford it. It's about making sure they get good value on a deal for a player like this, whom they really like, but also, you know, keeping space for next season. So there's a lot of intelligent operation going on. I wouldn't be surprised if we see one or two little sales like Hannibal and something else, and then other than that, just Ugarte coming in. Now, Jadon Sancho, as I mentioned, the situation has been kind of ongoing. There's a few clubs still interested in him. PSG, maybe not so much now. Chelsea could pop up for him. We've talked about that. They made contact last year. They could be quite interested. They could come in for him. It seems like it doesn't make sense, but they continue to do things that don't make sense. Juventus, if they can sell Chiesa, then they were an earlier topic for him. He would like to go if there is a good offer. He's had discussions with the club very recently about this. Again, like I said, it's not a bad situation. It's not an ugly situation. It's not like last year. It's just that it would be better for everybody, and to get a fresh start. But United are going to want to get a reasonable kind of plan in place. And that would also be huge savings when we look at the PSR. If they were to get some fee for him to even break even a little bit on PSR in that 30-40 range, and get his wages off, they could save, you know, 10-15 million a year. So we'll see what happens with that. We will see if something gets done there. But it is an active topic. We'll see if he's in the squad, you know, and we'll see if he plays. I still think it's more likely at this point that he's going to stay, simply because there's just not the valid options out there, and that's okay. It's not going to be a huge problem, but obviously he's going to have to work hard to be in the team. When you look at, you know, all the players that are there, we need one of him, and Anthony is likely to miss out when we get healthy between everybody that's available. So yeah, that's one of the ongoing topics that we will also have to keep a close eye on as we come in towards the end of the window. Okay? Thank you for watching today's video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.